Welcome back to the channel. On today's episode, we're going to be making a mini map. So this is the exact kind of mini map I'm talking about. We could leave it as a rectangle if you wanted to, but if you want to make it a circle, it's just one extra step. So I'll show you how to do that as well. I'll also be showing you an easy way to add icons to each of these things that you want on the map. Obviously, if you look in the mini map right now, you can just see two of the Godot icons, but you can change that to whatever you want. Before we get started, I just want to thank you guys for 1,700 subs. Make sure you subscribe, and if you have, then like the video. So we're going to start by opening a project that you're working on, and if you don't have a project that you're working on, you can come to my Patreon and you can download my FPS template for tutorials template for free, or if you really want to support me, it's only $5 a month. You get all of this stuff unlocked, so it's a pretty good deal really when you think about it. So we're going to start with that exact template. This is what it looks like loaded up in Godot, and I'm just going to add some details to it in 3, 2, 1. Bam! Now we've got something to look at. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to need to create a SubViewport. So SubViewport, we're going to call this the Minimap Viewport. Cool. And then inside that Minimap Viewport, we're going to want to add a camera. 3D, and that camera we're going to need to change some of these settings. Projection, we're going to switch to orthogonal. Over in transform, you set the X rotation to -90, right? And that just means that it's going to look down. And then what we've got to do is we've got to set the Y position to 50, which is 50 meters in the air. We can see it there, or really anything that's higher than basically everything in the map. Cool. So the way that we zoom in and out is by changing this size. So you see, as we change the size, we're seeing it zoom in and out. So what we can do is we can split this view up. We're going to set that to the camera, just so we can get like a little bit of a better view. Maybe we'll split it sideways. Yeah, we'll split it sideways just for now. Cool, so now we've got our basic overview minimap cam, right? How do we actually add it to the screen? So the reason that I put the minimap viewport inside the main scene is just so we don't need to worry too much with it being created and recreated over and over again. Once the scene's created, this whole setup is created, and then on our player, we're actually going to add the minimap in the bottom left corner as a GUI element, and then we're going to attach the viewport's texture to that GUI element, which will be a texture rectangle, right? So we're going to go over to the player, and then we're going to add a control in. We're going to call this player GUI, and then on the player GUI, we're going to set that to the full width. Maybe we'll add like a margin container, and then we're going to set that to the full width. We're going to go to the theme overrides. We're going to set that to 8, 8, 8, and 8. Just so it doesn't touch the bottom of the screen. Maybe, just for example, we'll set that to 16, so it's a little bit more obvious. So from the margin container, we can go texture rect, and that texture rect is going to sit in the bottom left there. So we're going to call that minimap rect. Cool. So from the minimap rect, which we also need to make sure that the size isn't too ridiculous, we're going to set the vertical alignment to the bottom and then to the left. And then we're going to make this custom minimum size, let's say 256 by 256, just so we can see it. As you can see, we've started to get that basic layout of the minimap sorted. So that being said, we've just made that 256 by 256. So we're going to go back to the minimap viewport, and we're going to change this to 256, 256 from 512. And that's just so the pixels line up properly. So for the minimap rect, we're going to set the texture to just placeholder texture for now. Next, we're going to add a script to player GUI, and that's going to be called player GUI as well. We're just going to make sure that that's in the scripts folder, player GUI. And the reason we do this is because we don't want to put all of the GUI control inside the player script, because the player script is going to get obviously quite complicated as you add more systems and stuff like that. So the first thing we want to do is add an export variable for the minimap rect. So that minimap rect equals texture rect. We add that export variable there, minimap rect, and then what we can do is we can click on player GUI and then drag that minimap rect over to here. So now what do we need to do? We need to basically make it so when the player GUI starts up, we take the minimap viewport and then we add that output to the minimap rect. So we're going to start to do a little bit of scripting here. Func ready, get tree dot current scene, yeah, dot get node, It's called, what is it? Minimap Viewport. Just double check that that's true. Yep, Minimap Viewport in the current scene. And then camera 2D. Yeah, oh yeah. And also while we're at it, this camera 3D, we're just going to set the current. It should be current anyway, but just in case. On the player GUI, we're going to go back here. Okay, Minimap Viewport. So then we're going to go if minimap rect, then minimap rect.texture is going to equal that minimap viewport.texture. So we've got to go minimap viewport is a sub viewport equals get tree. Cool. It's going to go dot texture. Cool. Now if we run that, it should be there. Yeah, cool. Perfect. So our minimap is already there in the bottom left corner. Now, when it comes to sizing, it's a little bit interesting. Obviously, it depends on the way that your game is set up. But let's say I have, because obviously my screen is 1440p, so it's like 2K. But if you want to set that to, like, let's say something like 1280 by 720, and then you run that, it's still going to load up at 2K, my screen. And this is obviously like really important when it comes to making like retro games and stuff like that. It's really important to take note of your stretch mode. So stretch mode canvas items is going to render the thing at 2K, but it's going to stretch your canvas items up to the proportions that you've set in the editor. So if I go to 2D here, you can see that this right here, obviously, like we need to do a little bit of an adjustment now because we've set that to 1280 by 720 instead of what it was before. So we've just got to go like that and everything should be good. But you can see when I load that up, it's going to be a lot bigger because I've got that stretch mode set to canvas items. If I set that to viewport, what it's going to do is it's going to render the game at 720p and then upscale that. So I don't know how well that comes across, but we can see a little bit of pixelation on that tree, for instance. So yeah, like I said, it really depends how you want to set your game up. Let's go 640 by 480. Just to drive the point home a little bit. Obviously, if we do that, it's going to be massive. But yeah, that's just the way it is. Those are the different modes. I like to set it 1200 by 800. No, 1280 by 800. The reason I like that resolution is because that's the resolution of the Steam Deck. And that's the lowest resolution that I will support for all of my games because it runs on the Steam Deck, right? For this example, we're going to set that stretch mode to viewport, but just keep that in mind. However you do it is going to affect the output. Now, what's next? We need to make that viewport move around with the player. So the way we're going to do that is we're just going to set the player to our global group player. Cool, so back over on the main scene, we're going to grab that camera 3D. I'm going to rename it Minimap Cam. And then we're going to add a script to it. Make sure it saves into the right folder. Minimap Cam. So the first thing we need to do in here is we've got to get a reference to the player. So I'm going to go player, player. Okay, we don't have that set up. So I'm just going to quickly go over to the player code and set the class name to player inside the player code. Now back to Minimap Cam. We're going to go func ready. We're going to find that player and then we're going to set that variable player to the player equals get tree dot first node in group player. And now what we're going to do is we're going to update that position of the cam so it's always above the player as we walk around. Func physics process, because we don't need to do this every single frame, although if you want to, you can. Global position equals player. Actually, we've got to make a vector. Vector 3. It's going to be player dot global position dot x for the x. What is our height? Our height is like 50, so we're just going to go 50 for the y. And then for the z, we're going to get the player's global position dot z. And now if we walk around, that map should follow us. Perfect. So another thing that we can do is right here, we can keep it the way that it is, or we can rotate the map. So I'm going to show you how it works when we rotate the map, because I think that is a little bit, it makes a little bit more sense, like GTA. So what we can do here is we can go rotation dot y equals player dot rotation dot y. Cool. And now as we move around, it's going to move that map around as well. Cool. So the next thing we need to do is related to the icons. Like obviously we need icons to show up in that mini map. So this is the way that I've worked out how to do it. I'm going to go back over to the player And we're going to create what I'm calling the minimap icon component, or an icon component. So I'm just going to create a node 3D. I'm going to call it icon component. And then I'm going to add a script to it. Cool. And then I'm also going to save this out, save branch as scene. I'm also going to save it out into its own scene. So then when we go and open that up, it's going to be essentially blank. In icon component, I'm going to add a sprite 3D. I'm going to call it icon sprite. And then in my icon component, what I can do is grab a reference to that icon sprite. So we're also going to need an export variable for the icon that you've chosen to represent like whatever, you know, you attach this component to. So I'm going to go export var map icon, and that's going to just be a texture of some kind. So then we're going to go function ready. We're going to go if map icon, then icon sprite dot texture equals map icon. So that's just going to set this sprite to whatever we've got selected there. Now we need to do a little bit of work to this icon sprite. So we're going to go back over to the inspector here. Just got to change a few things. So the first thing we're going to change is the pixel size to 0.001. I'm going to change the axis to the y-axis. In flags, we're going to select no depth test. Fixed size, and then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add this visual instance 3D to layer number 20. Now the reason I do that is because all of these icons are going to be on visual instance 20, which means that our minimap cam is going to be able to see it because it's got 20 selected, but our player, we're going to go over to this camera and we're going to unselect 20. So 20, just so we know, I'm going to go into here. Layer 20 is map icons. Cool, and now on our player, we can just go to our icon component, and then we can set that to, let's just go icon to SVG, the Godot icon. And now when we walk around, you can see that icon is now showing up on the map. So that's also going to work for any enemies or any other instances that you've got that you want to be represented on the map. Just to show you what that's going to look like for other things, let's say you've got an enemy or something like that. Let's go node 3D. Where is it? It's over here. Also, I'm going to just switch this back to one viewport. This enemy, we can just say is over here. We're going to call it enemy or whatever you want, right? Even quest giver or something like that. And then we're going to add a mesh instance to that just so we can see it, something like that. And then what we can do is we can go Control-Shift-A, then I'm going to go icon component, and then on this icon component, I can set that to whatever I want. So I'm going to set that to the icon.svg as well. And now when I load up, as I walk around, look, you can see it being represented on the map. This is good for like showing enemy patrols because obviously this is going to show the direction that the enemy is actually facing. So if I go to this enemy code, which is going to make like a little test code or something like that, scripts enemy.gd. Now in here, I'm going to go func physics process. Then I'm going to go rotate y delta times 10. Yeah, there we go. And not that you can actually see it because it's a cylinder. I didn't even think about that. It was a capsule. But you can see it rotating down there in the minimap. Let's add something to its face just so you can actually see it moving around. So that's his little Among Us eyeballs. And now if we run that, we can see him spinning around and around and around and around and around. Pretty damn cool. So the next thing that we can do is take that square or rectangle and then turn that into a circle. So the easiest way to do that is we're going to go back over to the player here, the player GUI, and I'm going to add a parent to this minimap rectangle. And that parent is going to clip the child. So I'm going to add a texture rect, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to duplicate the minimap rect because it's already got the right dimensions, and then we're going to change this one to circle clip. And then what I can do inside the circle clip is if you have a circle texture or .svg, this is where you would put it in. But if you don't have anything like that, what you can do is you can go gradient texture, and then we can go fill. We can change that to radial from 0.5 to 0.5. Then what we can do is we can come in here, change that interpolation to constant, and then we can click on this one here, and then we can make that fully alpha. And I'm also going to make it black as well. Now we can go down to visibility where it says clip children, and then we can go clip and draw. And now you can see that it's cut a circle out and obviously it's a pretty dodgy circle because it's not the right size. So we can go back over to this here where it's 64. We can change that to 256 by 256. And now if we run that, we've got a perfectly decent circle. So I hope you guys learned something from this tutorial. Follow me on Twitch. We've been doing YouTube live streams lately. Thank you to my amazing patrons. You guys absolutely rock. These videos wouldn't be possible without you guys. Remember to join the Discord, go buy my games on Steam, and I'll see you guys in the next video.